Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来 to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on May 26, 2021. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the Shaolin monk and their lifestyle and their history. And in that episode, I promised all of you that we were going to come back in the next episode to talk more about some of the more interesting uh, trivia and facts and uh, origins about Buddhist monks. And then we ended up doing an episode on fried rice. Now, some people will say, what's going on there? And I'm going to tell you there's a very logical, very reasonable explanation to that, which is I forgot. Honestly, so often I don't script these videos. I say so often I never script these videos. Basically, everything you hear, everything you see is off the cuff, off the top of my head at the time of the video. Now, for Toy Thursday, I do spend a bit of time beforehand uh, making sure I know all the facts about the action figure I'm going to be talking about. But for the rest of these stuff, it's pretty much off the top of my head. And the problem with that is, quite often after I finish the video, it's forgotten. It's out of my head. So if you ask me 2 days from now, what did you do for Wisdom Wednesday this week? I would probably tell you I don't remember. Let me double check. So I totally forgot we were talking about monks and Buddhists and stuff like that. But it's okay. We'll make up for it in this episode. Now, I don't want to go into all the deep philosophical stuff about Buddhism because once upon a time I was a Buddhist when I was growing up, but I got out of that, and so I have a lot of personal experiences with being a Buddhist and what it was like. Um, and I have a lot of my own thoughts and ideas of what works, what don't work, as far as Buddhism goes for me personally. But I don't want to go into that because we are not here to judge a religion. We are not here to try to change anyone's mind about a religion. I'm not here trying to make you into a Buddhist or make you into not a Buddhist. But there are a lot of historical facts uh, about being a Buddhist monk that is quite interesting to know. Now, when I say Buddhist monk, I'm actually including the nuns as well. But just to save time, I don't want to have to do it in two separate groups. Because actually, most of the things they follow were very similar. All the rules and precepts and stuff like that they follow were very similar. It's just uh, the nuns had their own monastery, usually called nunnery, and the monks have their own monastery, temple, chapel, whatever. Um, they were not allowed to live together, of course. There was no co-ed monastery in ancient Chinese days. Let me quickly say this too, that when I'm talking about Buddhist monk here, I'll be talking about primarily in Chinese culture. I know there are Buddhist monk in Japan, Buddhist monk in India, Buddhist monk in Nepal, the Buddhist monk in Tibet, and a lot of them probably in one way or another have a slightly variation in their customs, slightly different in their beliefs. So I'm not the authority on uh, every single kind of Buddhist monk in the world. I can only tell you some of the more interesting stuff from Chinese perspective. Now, when you meet a Buddhist monk, you'll notice that they shave their head. nuns as well. Like I said, I'm including nuns when I say Buddhist monk. Um, so just know that I'm not just talking about the males. I'm including the female. They shave their head. That was done to distinguish them. Now, a lot of people say, why they shave their head? The shaven head was a way for them to be distinguished. It's a very symbolic thing. Shaving off your hair. Sorry, I tapped the microphone there. Shaving off your hair was a symbolic thing, both to show the world now that you are totally without anything on your head, meaning no ego, no greed, no desire. You're bare to the world. You're innocent and naive and bare to the world, like a newborn babe. Also, it symbolizes leaving everything behind. By shaving off your hair, you're casting away a layer of yourself, an old part of you that's been with you for your whole life. You're casting it away and you're ready to embrace a new life. On the top of their head, Buddhist monks have these like little dots, like little markings on their shaven head. What is that? That is the ritual scarring all the monks have to go through. When you become a monk, after they shave your head, they take incense, sticks of incense, and they put three of them together, and then uh, make, burn the marks into your head. That's why the dots look like a triangular pattern. Okay, what are these dots, and why do some monks have more dots than others? These dots symbolizes all the spirituality of a monk, of a Buddhist monk. Okay? There are many things they embody, but one of the things is the three dots remind a Buddhist monk that he, she, because nuns are included, he or she have to respect the three foundations of Buddhism. What are the three foundations of Buddhism? I'm just going to put it in plain English. I'm not going to go into the Buddhist religious terms here, just so we all understand each other. The three foundations of the Buddhist religion is the Buddha himself and the teaching of the Buddha and the followers of the Buddha. The three foundation. You can't have a Buddhism without uh and like without all three. If one is missing, it doesn't work. So you need all three. You need the Buddha, you need the teaching of the Buddha, the words of the Buddha, and then the follower of the Buddha. So that's symbolized by the three dots burned into the head of the Buddhist monk to always remind them that you can't just focus on one or two. You have to always pay attention to all three. Now, why is that so important? Well, let's look at it this way. Let's say you are a Buddhist, and you say, okay, I'm going to worship Buddha, and but then you start to worship the Buddha blindly. You get up every morning to put fresh flower and fresh fruit in front of that Buddha statue, and then you kneel in front of it and pray to the statue for the entire day. And at night, you light fresh incense. You put more fresh flower and fruit in front of that statue. And then you do that for the whole rest of your life. What did they accomplish? You accomplished nothing. You didn't even make Buddha very happy. You probably wasted a lot of fruit, a lot of flour, burned a lot of incense, but you didn't accomplish anything because you are paying attention to Buddha himself. You did not spend time studying the words. What is the Buddha trying to teach us? What is the Buddha telling us to do? What do you need to do to realize the philosophy of Buddhism. You, you need to live those words, study those words. Otherwise, just worshiping Buddha himself, worshiping the religion, worshiping the figure, doesn't accomplish anything. So you need Buddha's words, Buddha's teaching, and you need the Buddha himself, of course. But if you spend every day hiding in your monastery, studying the words of Buddha, you can memorize every word said by the Buddha, uh, word by word, back and front, left and right, top and bottom. You can read it backward. You can say it in 20 different languages. And you pay attention to the Buddha statue. At the end, what did you accomplish? Still nothing. Because to really be of help to the world, of help to your fellow human being, you need to take care of the people, as it's so important in the Buddhist religion, is to get out of that monastery. Stop talking about Buddha. Stop talking about Buddha's words and actually go out there and help people. Remember the follower. You need to take care of the people, aka Buddha's followers. So the three foundation that essential to Buddha's religion, pretty much to any religion, I would say, is the Buddha himself, his words, and his people. You need to take care of all three of these things. So the Buddhist monk have these three dots burned into the top of their head to remind them of that. And why do some monks have more dots than others? Because as you get older, as the longer you are a monk, sometimes hair grow back, and then you have to shave, of course, every day, and then eventually those scars heal over. And if you, after you've been a monk for 10, 20 years, you can barely tell the marks are there anymore. So a lot of monks, very uh, like those lifelong practitioner of Buddhism, that they decide to be a monk for their whole life. We'll talk a little bit more about that uh, later on, but they are called unconditional monks, or career monks, as some people will call them. Uh, Unconditional monks, they will regularly, every few years, get that uh, marking refreshed. They'll get burned again and again. So when you meet a really old monk that's been there for 40, 50 years, he or she will have a series of dots on their head, and just old scar, new scar, all jumbled up together. That's when you know that this monk is very experienced, very seasoned, been there for the whole life. Now, if you meet an old monk that had all they have is three fresh dots on their head that look nice and neat, nice and clean, just three dots, then you know this person had not been a monk their whole life. They probably just started yesterday. Okay, so age is not a way to determine how long a person has been a monk. You have to go by the what the scar look like on their head. Interestingly enough, while a lot of us know that Buddhist monks are vegetarian, they don't eat meat because one of the five precepts of being a monk is you're not allowed to kill another living being, and animal, bugs, human. Watch Karate Kids, and you know what I'm talking about. They don't even want to kill bugs. So that's one of the precepts. And of course, that includes do not be a party of the death of another creature, which means if you eat beef, then even though you didn't kill the cow yourself, you still are implicit in the murder of that animal because you're eating what a piece of it. So Buddhist monk not supposed to eat meat. A lot of us know that. But do you know that in very serious practitioners, they are also not supposed to eat five vegetables, five different herbs and vegetables. And these five things are garlic, onion, chive, leeks, and green onion, aka scallion. Onion, garlic, scallion, leeks, and chive. A serious, hardcore Buddhist monk not supposed to eat these things. The reason being that if you eat these vegetables cooked, they generally can affect your hormone. And if you eat them raw, they impact your liver, making you have really wild mood swings and bad temperament. Now, I must say here that don't stop eating these things after watching this video. If you just use a little bit of them in your cooking, that's fine, right? These, especially garlic, onion, they're really good for you. So we want to eat them. Uh, but you got to consider the lifestyle of a monk. When they eat nothing but vegetable, if they eat these things, they probably would eat them in great quantity, a lot greater quantity than us. I mean, when I'm cooking, most of the time I'm probably like, 4 or 5 cloves of garlic in when I'm cooking uh, 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 beef stir fry or chicken stir fry, because there's meat in there, there's other vegetable in there. The garlic is just there for flavoring. Now, if I am eating a strictly vegetarian diet and only things that I can grow in my garden, then most likely I'm going to use a lot more garlic because the dish would need a lot more substance to it. Same with onion, same with chives and scallion or green onion, and stuff like that. So uh, don't be afraid that these things are going to mess up your hormone. You would have to eat them every day and 3 meals a day and a lot of it for that to happen. But Buddhist monk knew that these things could uh, affect their temperament, so they banned these five vegetables from their diet because they. One thing about being a Buddhist monk is you need to be calm, you need to be very peaceful. You don't want to be agitated. You shouldn't be aggravated or frustrated. You should always be calm and peaceful and collected at all times. Now we talked about the Shaolin monk and their practice of martial art. Did you know that a lot of Shaolin Kung Fu uh, practiced by the monks, that even the ones that use swords are very different looking than your standard sword techniques. And there's a reason for that. While monks were encouraged not to kill other living things, there was actually no law against a monk defending him or herself. But okay, how do you defend yourself but still make that distinction? So a lot of monks, they started training in martial arts. They first started by training how to use sticks. But then, when monks were traveling, because remember, you need to have your head shaven, and you have to do that almost like every day for some people. So monks would carry blades on their person. These blades were usually about a foot long or maybe a little bit longer. Did they need something that long for shaving their head? No. But monks back then, they understood the importance of traveling light. So it wouldn't make sense for me to carry a stick for self-defense, and then a shaving razor for shaving my head, and a knife and fork or stuff like that for eating. What I would want, what monks wanted back then, was a tool that they can use for shaving their head, a tool they could use for chopping their vegetables, a tool they could use for self-defense. So they carry a blade that was about as long as their forearm, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the monk in question. But these blades were very unique. They looked like short swords, but they were single-edged. They all have one edge, and they have no point in the front. So the front of the blade was blunted. Reason being, the teaching of the Buddha said you're not supposed to kill any living being. And we are going to detour a little bit into martial art and tactical Tuesday category here, but it's all relevant. When you are attacking someone or defending yourself using a blade, if you slash and chop, the chance of you killing that person is like 20 times lower than if you stab. Okay? If you stab something into a person, usually it only takes like less than an inch, maybe a third of an inch, a quarter of an inch of penetration in the right place or the wrong place, depending on how you think of it, to kill the person, for the person to bleed out. If you puncture the main torso, the artery, any major artery, and there are a lot of places on our body that you just shouldn't puncture. The inside of the wrist, underside of the arm, in the armpit, anywhere along the front of the torso, back of the torso, neck, on the top of your leg, just to name a few. You puncture any of these places, the person bleeds to death. So monks back then knew it's okay for us to defend ourselves, but it's not okay for us to kill someone. So what could we do? Then the obvious answer was to make these specialized blades without points in the front. So if someone trying to attack us, then we can still slash and chop and cut them up and make them go away, but they won't die. We, and without a point in the front of the blade, we won't have the temptation to just stab the blade into them and killing them by accident. That's why they carry that special blade. That special blade, by the way, the Mandarin is called 戒刀. 戒刀, Jiadao, means the blade of a holy person. Well, some people say it's called the blade for shaving your head, but basically the same idea. Being a monk was actually quite advantageous in the old days because in ancient China, all the way up to about 100 years ago, being a monk was like that reset button. Was almost like that free, not go to jail free card when you play Monopoly. What do I mean by that? If you if you kill somebody in self-defense, back then there was no self-defense law. So if you kill someone in self-defense, or if someone who really needed killing, someone who uh, did something horrible to your friend or family, and you hunt them down and murder the heck out of them, and back then that's still death penalty. But if you became a monk, if you seriously repented your action and you became a monk for the rest of your life, in other words, you became an unconditional monk, that often would allow the magistrate to forgive to forgive you, to forget about the charges. Now, this did not work. In all instances, it was a at your discretion kind of situation. Uh, Often it's based on what did the magistrate really think of what you did. Let me explain that. Let's say I was at a pub and someone picked a fight with me, and I really did all I could to avoid this from happening, but the person attacked me, and then I used my deadly martial art and killed the person. Since there's no self-defense law, since there's no uh no but or if and anything, it's murder was murder, killing was killing. The law was black and white. So now I killed this person. The magistrate, even though the magistrate thought the killing was justified because the person provoked me, provoked me, and the person attacked me first, they would still have to chop off my head because that was the law. So having this little loophole in the system, so now if I really wanted to, I can renounce my worldly good. I can become a monk, and it's not as simple as just saying I want to become a monk. When you become a monk, your marriage is dissolved. You are never allowed to date, to have sex, to be married. You're never allowed to own any property, own any land or house. You have no worldly good. You have no relationship. So everything you have will be taken away. Now it's basically like imagine like declaring bankruptcy in a very personal kind of fashion. So let's say I killed this person in self-defense, and now I don't want to get my head chopped off. I can go to the nearest monastery and say, I repent my way. I've learned the error of my way. I'm going to spend the rest of my life being a monk. Please take me in. And if the abbot of the monastery accept me and give me the right paperwork and shave my head and give me the ritual scarring, then the court, the magistrate, take my house, take everything I own, and say, okay, now you're free to go. You're no longer Johnny Tai, the convicted killer. Now you are Johnny Tai, the monk. Okay? So this was an easy way out, or one way out for a lot of people who committed a crime that they shouldn't be punished for. They end up becoming monks and giving up on their worldly good and their possessions. Now, if you were a serial killer, if you are the kind of person who like go around and murder like 10, 20 people just for fun, then it doesn't work. Okay, you can, even if you find an abbot, even if you find a monastery that's willing to take you in, the magistrate will still arrest you and chop off your head. So this is not something that's just going to work every time. It have to depend on the nature of your crime and how the magistrate really felt about you. Now, of course, if after you become a monk and you commit another crime, then you will be punished. The monks did not get out of being punished if they committed crime. So, also, if you tell the magistrate that you're going to be a monk and they let you go, and then they find out 10 years later you decided to not be a monk anymore, they'll still come and grab you and chop off your head because you went back on your word. So it's something that you have to be very serious about. Now, what is this idea of conditional monk and unconditional monk? Unconditional monk is, of course, you say, okay, that's it for me. Uh, I'm going to be a monk for the rest of my life. Uh, Shave my head, give me the scar, and take me in and show me the way to enlightenment. And for the rest of my life, I'm not going to uh, grow hair. I'm not going to uh, eat meat. I'm not going to have sex. I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have any belonging for the rest of my life. That is unconditional, monk. You're in, and that's it. You're never out. Uh, if an unconditional monk suddenly decide to change their mind, and that had happened before, it can have a lot of very serious social consequences. I mean, the Buddhist monks themselves won't do anything to you if you don't want to be a monk anymore. They are not going to force you to be one. But to have once upon a time being an unconditional monk and then change your mind, it's a serious slash against your character, against your personality, against your credit. So good luck trying to get a loan. good luck trying to make friends. Because now anyone who knows that will know that your word is not good for anything. You're not a person of your word. You can't be trusted. If you even betrayed Buddha, how who's to say you won't betray me? So that was a very serious kind of social stigma if anyone was to uh, want to change their mind. So instead, a lot of people they did this thing called conditional monk, and this happened with primarily a lot of nuns. Uh, so what happened there is a lot of time orphan girls or girls that um, were fell into hard time and got sold by their family. They decide to go into a nunnery and seek sanctuary. They will still get their head shaven, uh, although sometimes they were even allowed to keep their hair because they were only there because of a circumstance, because of a hard circumstance. So they fell into hard time. They needed a place for sanctuary. So when they go into the monastery, the nunnery, they can tell the abbot, I want to be a nun, but I will only do it until I meet the person of of my dream. I meet Prince Charming, or I will only do it until I'm 25. I'll only do it until I turn 18, so on and so on. And a lot of time, these conditional monks, conditional nuns, they were not going to advance to hold any kind of serious position in the monastery. They're not going to be promoted. However, they were allowed to do it. They were allowed to be around and study the way of the Buddha and serve people just with all the other monks. But quite often they were stuck with menial work like cleaning, washing the floor every day, wiping the table, washing dishes, and stuff like that. A lot of time when Chinese people have babies, sometimes if the baby is particularly sick, or let's say the baby is always having health problem, and the family didn't really have the money to keep hiring doctors, what a lot of people will say is, okay, your baby is haunted by evil spirit. You need to take your baby to the monastery and register him or her as a conditional monk. Because while they're in the monastery, they'll be protected by Buddha. So hopefully, then when they grow up, they will be stronger and be able to fight off the evil spirit on their own. So these families will take their baby to the monastery and said, I want my child to be a monk, but only up until he's 7 years old. When he's seven, I'll come get him. Up until seven, he's yours. He's your responsibility. It's you guys' responsibility to keep him alive. In return, there is a in return. You don't just get away with this scot free. In return, I will donate uh, 5 bags of rice to the monastery every month. Okay, so it's kind of a way to say you look after my kid because my kid is sick all the time and I don't have money to get doctor and get babysitter. So you look after my kid until he's 7 years old. And in return, even though I can't pay you much, I'll bring you food. I'll bring you guys 5 bags of rice every month as a payment. And a lot of monasteries did that. So quite often we see little uh, child or little children monk in the monastery. They're running around. They're kind of cute with their little shaven head, and they look all serious and studying Buddhist philosophy. That's what's going on. It's they're there not for life. They're only there until they're old enough, and their family will come get them. Of all the monks in Chinese history, there's always one highest ranking, uh, one of the most powerful monk that every generation of Chinese emperors, there's always one monk that was called the emperor's monk stunt or monk double. Now, this monk might not have been the abbot. It's probably not even a high ranking monk in his own monastery. But make no mistake about it, this monk was the most powerful monk in the entire religion, even more powerful than the highest ranking abbot of all the monasteries, because this monk is a stunt double for the Chinese emperor of the time. Every emperor had one, but it's not always known who was the emperor's stunt double monk. What is this about? Well, it was said that the emperor, Chinese emperor, was called Tianzi. Tianzi, Tianje, Tianzi means the son of the god, son of the god. So Chinese people believe that every emperor was a son of the Jade Emperor or a Buddha or another high-ranking god. That's why they could be emperors, because they were special. They were like superhuman. So obviously, if you wanted to claim that you are the son of God, you have to be religious. You have to be pious. You have to do all the uh, Buddhist, godly, nice things. Yeah? However, because of the nature of being an emperor, an emperor need to have sex because the emperor, part of the emperor's duty was to make sure they have offspring to pass the throne down to. Emperor had to kill people because part of the thing about being an emperor was you have to be able to defend your country. You have to go to war if it was required. If there were bad people, you need to chop off their head. So it's not practical to expect an emperor to be all pious and godly and nice all the time. So Chinese imperial court very conveniently figured out this system that every emperor could bestow upon a monk the title of the emperor's monk double. And this monk, it's his job to do everything that expected from the emperor if the emperor was a monk. And so, in another word, this was literally the monk version of the emperor himself. So, even though this monk might be just a low ranking monk, anytime there's any kind of a dispute, especially religious dispute, any kind of a trouble, this monk's word was incredibly powerful. There has been many, many times in Chinese history where when someone had something they wanted to tell the emperor, for example, let's say let's say I own the local bank, and then I got into some trouble with the local government, and the local magistrate is so corrupt that he stole my bank away from me. And when I try to report it to the higher up, the next level up, well, because they are corrupt too, so they are not going to take my side. They just tell me to go home and threaten to chop off my head. So in this case, my only hope is to try to get this information to the emperor so the emperor could take a look at what's going on here in British Columbia, Canada, and see how corrupt the government officials are here, and chop off the head and put some new people here that would actually take care of the people. But well, I mean, you can imagine being an emperor was busy. job, so they didn't always look at all the paperwork. That of course, most of the time they probably didn't even look at all the report. So for me to get a report, get a letter to the emperor would be immensely frustrating and almost impossible, especially back then. There was no mail system, no postal system. It's not like anyone can walk into the imperial palace to see the emperor. So for me to get this this situation over to the attention of the emperor would be incredibly difficult, unless I happen to know who was who is the emperor's monk double, because anyone can walk into your monastery to talk to your monk. But now, if I know who this person is, then I go to this monk and I say, "This is my situation. I really need to talk to the emperor, or I need the emperor to know about this." The emperor's monk double has a direct line to the emperor. Not by phone, of course, there's no telephone back then, but they could go to see the emperor anytime they wanted. They didn't need to go to any security check. They didn't need to go through any bureaucracy. Uh, Emperor's monk double could walk into an emperor's bedroom at night without being announced, because as far as the emperor is concerned, as far as a world was concerned, the emperor's monk double and the emperor, they were counted as one single entity. He and he, they were the same person. Okay, so this this monk double of the emperor was your direct line to the emperor. This is why a lot of times they didn't let people know who this person was. Otherwise, people would be bugging them all the time. There are so many more just interesting little tidbits about Buddhism and Buddhist monks in Chinese history that there's no way for us to cover them all in one episode. Maybe we will talk more about it in future episodes, but for now, I hope this episode, if not educational, at least was a little bit interesting for you all. And by the way, this is the third day of my uh, vaccine, and today I'm feeling great. I'm not sore anymore. I'm not achy anymore. Today I feel like 100% back to normal. So that's really, really cool. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Toys Thursday. For now, have a good night.